Alright, so today we're going to be talking about implicit differentiation. But first off, we need to differentiate, get it? Okay? We need to differentiate between what we would call implicit and what we would call explicit. So, explicit, I would say y equals 3x plus 5, or y equals x cubed plus 4x plus 5. Anything like this is explicit. That means that you could easily differentiate it. You just take the derivative of one side, take the derivative of the other. So dy over dx equals 3x squared plus 4. Easy differentiation. Implicit equations, I would say, are harder to differentiate just by doing something like this. Like you just differentiate both sides. You have to change something in the equation for it to actually differentiate. So let's say we have something like 5 equals y times x to the cubed plus y squared minus 5, right? You can't just set this equation equal to 0 because you'd have to do a lot of funky stuff and it just wouldn't work out. So that's why you do implicit differentiation. Alright, now let's go over the guidelines to implicit differentiation. The first step is to differentiate both sides with respect to x. Then you collect all the terms involving dy over dx on one side and you move all the other terms to the other side. Next, you factor out dy over dx out of the first side and you factor that out of the equation. Okay? Then you solve for your dy over dx. Alright, so now let's do an example problem. Let's say we have something like 5 equals y squared times x plus 5y minus 3x. Alright, let's say we have something like that. So the first step is to differentiate everything with respect to x. So when we derive a constant, that's just going to be 0. And then here, we're going to have to do the product rule. So let's take the derivative of the first part. So that's 2y. And since we're differentiating y, we have to do it with respect to x. So it has to be dy over dx, right? And then we multiply that by the second number. And then for the second part of the product rule, we add the derivative of the second term. So that's 1. And then we multiply it by our first term, y squared. And then we move on to 5y. So the derivative of 5y is 5. And since we're differentiating with respect to x, it has to be dy over dx. And then 3x is minus 3. Okay? So now let's sort of clean stuff up a little bit. So we have 2y dy over dx times x plus y squared plus 5 dy over dx minus 3. And now I'm going to move all the terms that don't have a dy dx attached to them over to the left. So I see that this term has a dy over dx, so I'm not going to move it. This term can move over here, so we're going to have negative y squared. This has a dy dx, so we're not going to move it. And we're going to add 3 because that doesn't have a dy dx attached to it. So we end up getting negative y squared plus 3 equals 2y dy over dx times x plus 5 dy over dx. Now we factor out our dy over dx on the right side. So 2y times x plus 5, all of this times dy over dx. See what we did? We just factored it out. And then we're going to divide our left side by all of this stuff, and we're going to be able to solve for dy over dx. So negative y squared plus 3 over 2y times x plus 5. Put this in parentheses. Equals dy over dx. And that is how you do implicit differentiation. Ooh, it's the end screen. Click on one of these links to be directed to that playlist. And don't forget to subscribe!